Tamar Braxton's recent outburst caught everyone off guard. One remark, a pause, and a slightly too casual sentence that began as a calm moment have now exploded into one of the most explosive family disclosures the Braxtons have ever encountered. Because Tamar didn't give a hint this time. She didn't sugarcoat the facts. She didn't defend anyone's comfort. She said something. By doing this, she brought Towanda, Michael, and Ashlee, a name that fans had never anticipated, right into the middle of a maelstrom that had been building behind closed doors for years. Social media was in disarray in a matter of minutes. The clips were cut. They replayed lives. An entirely new meaning emerged from old interviews. Fans started making connections between things that weren't supposed to. One query, why now, tore across timelines like wildfire. According to insiders, Tamar revealed cooperation, conflicting allegiances, and apparently unconsented decisions in addition to tension. Even more startling, Ashlee's truth wasn't discovered by chance. People close to the situation claim that Tamar was fully aware of what would happen as soon as that name came up. It was said that Towanda wasn't prepared. It is said that Michael stopped talking. Fans are wondering if Ashlee was misinterpreted or misrepresented for years, because of her abrupt appearance in this story. It is evident that Tamar's words were not solely motivated by emotion. She expressed that she was tired of defending narratives that would never shield her. This discovery affects more than just how fans perceive the Braxton family, if the rumors circulated by insiders are even partially accurate. It alters who was actually standing with whom all along. Everything changed as soon as Tamar Braxton spoke. At first, it wasn't too loud. It wasn't overly dramatic. There was no music, tears, or a quote that would make headlines. It arrived softly, almost casually, as reality frequently does just before it blows up. In the middle of a conversation, one line was dropped, and there was a pause that was too long to ignore. Fans sensed it at that break. There had been a crossing. It had just been released after years of protection. Clips began to circulate within minutes. Parts of the talk, not the entire exchange. Tamar's expression while speaking. The name of Towanda hung in the air. Michael made a comment without providing an explanation. Ashlee came next. Like a match in petrol, that name fell. Because Ashlee had always been on the outside of the Braxton story, recognizable, but never fully explained, present but never at the center. Up until now. It wasn't made easier by social media. It exploded. To capture tone, intonation, and intention, fans slowed down recordings, repeated sounds, and froze frames. No one was inquiring about Tamar's words. They wanted to know why she said it at last. Additionally, purported sources claim that the timing wasn't coincidental. Tamar didn't choose to reveal family dynamics in order to get attention after waking up. She was at her breaking point. Tamar has been sitting on this for years, according to people with knowledge of the matter. Not weeks. Not months. Years. Keeping quiet in the name of peace that supposedly only went one way, family harmony and brand protection. According to reports, the pressure to keep it cute, maintain the Braxton image, swallow annoyance, and smile for the cameras had grown intolerable. Tamar didn't make a mistake when she eventually spoke. It was a liberation. People in the room reported that Towanda's response was prompt and unguarded. Not rage. Startled. The kind of startling realization that a boundary you thought would never be crossed has simply vanished. According to insiders, Towanda didn't react publicly immediately, because she didn't know how, not because she didn't care. Towanda wasn't ready to defend the story Tamar revealed in real time. However, Michael apparently became silent in a way that seemed calculated. Fans saw it right away. Nothing to say. No ambiguous posts. No refusals. Just not there. Furthermore, absence is never neutral in celebrity culture. It's either preparation or defense. People close to the family have whispered that Michael had been positioned for a long time as the fixer, the mediator, and the guy who diffused tense situations. However, Tamar's disclosure reportedly called into question that role completely. Tamar was hinting at more than just disagreement. Making decisions was involved. Decisions made without her. Conversations with others, not with her. On the right side, loyalty lines were created without her name. And everything changed when she brought up Ashlee. Ashlee had long been viewed as close by fans. Married, present at events, and a member of the larger Braxton universe, but never at the center of its disputes. That impression was immediately altered by Tamar's remarks. According to insiders, Tamar did not accuse Ashlee of any misconduct. She was revealing alignment. When it counted, who stood where? Who raised their voice? Who said nothing? And who profited from that quiet? Almost instantly, old footage reappeared. Scenes that viewers had seen numerous times felt different all of a sudden. There were times when Tamar appeared uneasy. She was discussed in group discussions. Family gatherings where choices appeared to have been made before she entered. Viewers dismissed it at the time as editing or personality conflicts. People are now questioning whether it was something far more profound. Alleged insider leaks claim that control and financial decisions are the root of the conflict. Access is just as important as money. Who was influential? Who had the last word? Who was supposed to cue? According to insiders, Tamar was not upset about losing anything tangible. It had to do with being viewed as a liability rather than a collaborator in the heritage of her own family. According to sources, realizing the alignment wasn't coincidental was the most agonizing part. Tamar supposedly held the long-held belief that devotion would correct itself and that miscommunications were fleeting. Instead, she found consistency. The same individuals consistently show up for the same reasons. Furthermore, such interests have nothing to do with her name. People close to Tamar claim that Ashlee's role became symbolic. Not because of anything she did in public, but rather because of what her presence signified in private. A change. A voice substitute. Tamar believed she was no longer able to reach this comfort level. It wasn't to blame Tamar when she eventually stated her name aloud. It was to admit a reality that fans had never been let to learn. Towanda is said to have had a breakdown subsequently. Not captured on camera. Not for the general public. Behind closed doors. She was taken aback, according to sources, not because Tamar had lied but more because Tamar had ceased to shield her. For years, the unwritten understanding had been that protection. Take care of it in private. Don't post it online. Avoid shattering the family in public. Everything changed when Tamar broke that agreement. This is where the narrative becomes more sinister. Insiders claim that Tamar didn't speak up because she was upset. She couldn't keep quiet, as something was going to happen, so she spoke up. The choice. A change. A story about to be cemented without her permission. It is said that Tamar's disclosure was not an emotional outburst, but rather a preemptive move. Before the story continued without her at all, she wanted her perspective to be documented. Fans saw something else right away. Tamar was not overly dramatic. She didn't scream. She didn't start crying right away. She spoke in a controlled tone. Exhausted. Lastly, people were more afraid of that than they were of rage. Because controlled honesty implies planning. It implies someone who has already lamented the consequences and determined it was worthwhile. The Braxton fans had divided into factions before the conclusion of the day. Those who thought Tamar had at last revealed the truth for which she had been condemned. And those who believed that family matters ought to have been kept private at all costs. However, there was one fact that skeptics could not dispute. Tamar sounded exhausted. "I've finished negotiating her suffering." Silence has been translated into loyalty. She was tired of telling stories that didn't shield her. What is the most disturbing aspect? According to insiders, this is just the start. Because Tamar didn't tell the whole thing. It was the initial crack. The preface. The warning shot. Some discussions have not yet come to light. Messages that have not been compromised. Unexplained decisions. And those who believed their positions would never be called into question are suddenly witnessing the ground under them change. Ashlee's unexpected attention, Michael's quiet, and Towanda's tears no longer seem coincidental. The family feels as though they are in the first act of something they will never be able to escape. What follows won't just be awkward if Tamar is genuinely done defending everyone but herself. It won't be reversed. The story had already moved from astonishment to examination by the time the second wave arrived. Tamar's sentence and Towanda's emotional response were no longer the focus of this. It had to do with patterns. Schedules. Until today, folks have no idea what to look for in receipts. Fans continued to dig after they had begun. They never do. The speed at which old memories reappeared with fresh significance was what caught my attention right away. Once light-hearted interviews suddenly felt serious. Family scenes that had been edited to appear light-hearted suddenly resembled subdued power battles. In those instances, Tamar's tone was restrained rather than dramatic, as if she was picking her words carefully, because the room wasn't safe for candor. Alleged insiders claim that wasn't a coincidence. According to reports, Tamar had discovered the hard way that speaking openly had repercussions. Without her, decisions would be made. Quietly, invitations would cease to arrive. She would receive information either late or not at all. She would also be told that she was overreacting when she questioned it. Among enthusiasts, that word has turned into a lightning rod. Now that Tamar has finally spoken, some are wondering if overreacting simply means don't interfere with the plan. And that strategy, according to insiders, was centered on control. Money was undoubtedly a component of it, but it wasn't just financial domination. Command of the story. Excessive access. Who was supposed to remain in formation, and who spoke on behalf of the family. According to sources, Michael's responsibilities went beyond management. It was calculated. Even when cracks were starting to appear underneath, he knew how to keep things looking smooth. However, Tamar's disclosure called into question the entire framework. Almost immediately, fans saw something unsettling. Michael didn't refute anything. He didn't elaborate. He did not stand up for Towanda. When Ashlee's name came up in the conversation, he ignored it. His silence turned into a statement, and it felt deliberate. The kind that holds off on making a move until they see how the audience responds. Towanda, on the other hand, apparently gave a mixed yet passionate response. According to those close to her, she had to choose between loyalty to the structure she had assisted in maintaining an allegiance to her sister. Tamar's remarks revealed more than simply a disagreement. They made Towanda face her role in it. And that's where Ashlee's name keeps coming up. Several purported sources claim that Ashlee was not the root of the dispute. She served as its emblem. A change in who was heard and who wasn't was symbolized by her presence. Who was influential in private discussions? Who was consulted? Who wasn't? Tamar reportedly felt tactically, rather than romantically, replaced. And that distinction is important. Because, contrary to what gossip blogs like to say, Tamar wasn't accusing anyone of betrayal. She was revealing alignment. When choices were taken behind closed doors, who stood where? Who profited from her silence? And who, despite feeling more and more marginalized, remained at ease? Fans started making connections between Tamar's professional changes and her family's dynamics. She distanced herself from these projects. She avoided appearances. Agreements that quietly fell through. It was presented at the time as either creative differences or exhaustion. People are now speculating that it might have been something completely different. A breaking point that passes for fatigue. In one especially well-known video, Tamar was seen grinning while other people talked over her in a group situation. It appeared to be traditional sibling banter at the time. Viewers now saw that her smile did not extend to her eyes. How she gave up attempting to speak up. Instead of leaning in, she leaned back. Experts in body language on TikTok had a blast analyzing posture and facial expressions as if they were exhibits from a courtroom. And it became increasingly evident the more people examined it. Tamar's voice did not suddenly disappear. She figured out how to mute it. According to insiders, the actual stress increased when Tamar began to doubt financial transparency. Asking to be informed rather than seeking control. Requesting an explanation of choices that impacted her reputation, brand, and legacy. The reported backlash she got wasn't particularly strong. It was delicate. Deflection. Delays. Talks that never took place. That's the type of disagreement that doesn't start making noise until it does. Whispers said Ashlee was frequently present during these times. As a participant rather than an initiator. Someone whose thoughts were taken into account. Someone who valued comfort. Tamar saw that. It apparently grew impossible to ignore over time. According to insiders, Towanda's tears were caused by more than just being called out. They wanted to be noticed. The courteous aspect of their relationship was torn away by Tamar's remarks and replaced with something unvarnished. That mirror caught Towanda off guard. The speed at which the family united following Tamar's speech was another observation made by fans. Posts about love that are vague. About recovery. About the importance of family. However, none of those posts addressed Tamar's main points. They talked about the optics. And the quiet said a lot. The leaks followed. Alleged text messages started to circulate. They were detailed enough to seem authentic, but they were never completely verified. Messages regarding meetings to which Tamar was not invited. About choices that had already been made before she was notified. Regarding dissatisfaction with her unpredictability, a term that followers quickly identified as code for won't fall in line. It nearly didn't matter if those communications were real or not. They were too well suited to the story that people were already putting together. The internet began posing more challenging queries. Why did it always feel like Tamar was the one who had to make concessions? Why was her quiet always necessary for peace? What made accountability seem biased? And probably most disturbing of all, why did nobody realize there was an issue until Tamar broke ranks? Ashlee's response fueled the flames. Or rather, she didn't have one. Fans anticipated a message that was at least ambiguous. Something impartial. Something soothing. Rather, nothing was present. No refutation. No explanation. No effort to reinterpret. Just not there. Once more, absence turned into a statement unto itself. Some admirers expressed sympathy, claiming Ashlee owed the public nothing. Others had a different perspective. Silence seemed reassuring to them. Like someone who is sure she won't be affected by the storm. However, Tamar's fans weren't going to let it go. They emphasized how frequently women who speak up in family systems are called difficult. How frequently is sincerity reframed as drama? How frequently the most vocal truth-teller ends up being the most convenient scapegoat? Beyond famous rumors, Tamar's story struck a chord. It struck a nerve. By the end of the week, the Braxton story had become more than simply a fad. It was changing. A family reunion special was no longer anticipated. They desired responsibility. They desired clarity. They wanted to know why it took so long for anyone to pay attention to Tamar, and why she felt ignored for so long. Then Tamar did something that nobody anticipated. She stopped speaking. She didn't conduct follow-up interviews. She didn't elaborate on what she said. She didn't take any steps back. People were afraid of that restriction, because it usually indicates that someone has said exactly what they needed to say when they finally tell the truth and then stop talking. Nothing more. Nothing less. Furthermore, the public's approval has no bearing on what happens next. According to insiders, Tamar is done engaging in private negotiations. "I'm tired of being the only one expected to endure discomfort." For the sake of unity, which never shielded her, she was done turning suffering into digestible sound bites. This is the part that makes everyone nervous. Tamar has yet to disclose some information. She has mentioned, but not repeated, certain conversations. She has alluded to but not named certain decisions. She has hinted at, but not fully revealed, certain individuals. What would happen if she decided to stop being cautious if this was the measured, controlled version that she decided to release first? Because it's obvious that the family didn't anticipate Tamar speaking at all, regardless of what they are currently attempting to contain. They might lose much more as a result of that calculation error than just a headline. By the time the third phase started, it was obvious that the Braxton family had gone too far. What had started out as shock had hardened into reckoning, which was far more dangerous. Because the noise around her increased as soon as Tamar fell silent. Too much noise. People began to notice who was moving behind the scenes and who appeared anxious in the midst of that chaos. Curiosity gave way to consequence. Emergency talks were taking place that the public would never hear, according to purported insiders. Late-night phone conversations. Meetings that felt more like damage assessments, but were presented as check-ins. Reconciliation was no longer the aim. It was a containment strategy. And that in and of itself proved that Tamar had not lied, as many fans had already surmised. Something had been disturbed by her. According to reports, Towanda's emotional state deteriorated as the ramifications became clear. According to sources, she was coping with both private guilt and public humiliation. She replayed the moments in her mind with guilt, and all of a sudden she saw things differently. She sometimes chose peace over honesty out of guilt. She felt guilty about keeping quiet since it was simpler to do so than to question the system that worked for her. According to people close to Towanda, the tears weren't staged. They took longer than expected. Years behind schedule. Tamar's remarks made her face the extent to which she had accepted imbalance in the name of harmony within the family. You can't take that away once you've seen it. Meanwhile, Michael's position grew more uncomfortable. Fans started going back to his earlier interviews and quotes about protecting the machine and keeping the brand tight. Once professional words now sounded menacing. People wondered if individual voices, particularly Tamar's, had been sacrificed in order to preserve the family brand. The quiet distancing followed. Insiders observed that Tamar was no longer included in discussions that she had previously participated in. Without her, projects were discussed. Appearances were modified. Plans changed subtly but clearly. It wasn't explicit punishment. Erasure, that is. The kind that occurs when an individual declines to fulfill their designated role. Ashlee's silence only made things more tense. Ashlee was told not to speak, according to people close to the situation. Saying the wrong thing could confirm too much, not because she was guilty of anything. It wasn't confusion that caused her to remain silent. It had to do with caution. Fans sensed that as well. They started questioning why Tamar's clarity didn't seem to matter as much as Ashlee's comfort. Why did the family take so long to fix the fracture, but so fast to defend the structure? Why did statements about love continue to surface without any recognition of the harm they caused? The story revolved around that imbalance. Tamar then took another action. A silent one. One that didn't trend immediately, but sent shockwaves through people paying attention. She unfollowed several family-adjacent accounts. No announcement. No caption. Just a digital boundary drawn in plain sight. Fans immediately clocked it. In the Braxton universe, unfollows aren't accidents. They are declarations. Tamar wasn't lashing out. She was stepping back. And that scared people more than confrontation ever could. Because stepping back means you've stopped hoping things will change. Insiders claim Tamar has reached a point of emotional finality. Not bitterness. Not revenge. Acceptance. The kind that comes after years of trying to be understood and realizing the system isn't designed to hear you. What's especially chilling is how calm she appears. No cryptic posts. No subtweets. No emotional live sessions. Just distance. And distance, in families like this, is the loudest statement of all. The public, meanwhile, continued doing what the family couldn't stop, connecting dots. Fans pulled timelines showing when Tamar began withdrawing from family-centered projects. When her tone shifted. When she stopped defending dynamics she once explained away. The pattern was undeniable. This wasn't sudden. It was cumulative. People also began questioning how often Tamar had been positioned as the difficult one. The emotional one. The unpredictable one. In hindsight, those labels looked less like personality traits and more like tools. Ways to dismiss valid concerns without addressing them. Psychologists on social media weighed in, not on the family specifically, but on systems that function this way. How one voice becomes the designated disruptor, so the system doesn't have to change. How truth-tellers often get isolated, not because they are wrong, but because they are inconvenient. Tamar's story stopped being celebrity gossip. It became a case study. Towanda's silence after her initial emotional response only intensified speculation. Sources say she's torn between reaching out and staying in line. Between sisterhood and structure. Between honesty and safety. That kind of internal conflict doesn't resolve quickly, if it resolves at all. And then there's the part no one wants to say out loud. There may be no reunion. Insiders suggest the family is bracing for a long-term shift. Not a dramatic split, but a slow separation. Fewer shared spaces. Fewer forced moments. Less pretending. Tamar has allegedly made it clear she's no longer willing to sacrifice her peace for optics. And that changes everything. Because if Tamar isn't coming back into the fold quietly, then the family has to adjust publicly. The brand has to adapt. The narrative has to evolve without her smoothing the edges. And that's where the real fear sets in. People are realizing Tamar holds more truth than she's shared. More context. More stories. More receipts. She hasn't used them. Not because she doesn't have them, but because she hasn't needed to. Yet. Fans are divided on what they want next. Some hope for healing. Others want the full story, no matter how uncomfortable. But almost everyone agrees on one thing. Tamar doesn't sound like someone bluffing. She sounds like someone who has already made peace with the consequences. And that's what makes this moment irreversible. Because once a person chooses themselves publicly after years of private compromise, the system they leave behind has to face itself. Without excuses. Without scapegoats. Without the luxury of pretending everything is fine. Whether Towanda reaches out. Whether Michael speaks. Whether Ashlee ever addresses the role fans believe she played. None of that changes the core truth that's already landed. Tamar reclaimed her voice. Not by shouting. Not by exposing everything. But by saying just enough, and then walking away. And sometimes, that's the most devastating move of all. Because the silence that follows isn't empty. It's full of everything that was never said, and everything that might still come out. Before you click away, understand this: walking away right now means missing the moment when this story actually changes. Because what you just heard isn't the end. It's the pressure point. These situations never explode all at once. They crack slowly, and then something gives. A statement. A reaction. A leak. A name that finally speaks. And when it happens, the people who were paying attention early are the only ones who understand what they are seeing. If you've ever felt like the difficult one in your family. If you've ever been told to stay quiet to keep the peace. If you've ever watched someone else control the narrative while you swallowed the truth, then this story isn't just celebrity drama. It's familiar. That's why your engagement matters here. When you like this video, you're telling the algorithm this conversation deserves to be seen. When you comment, even one sentence, you're keeping the spotlight where it belongs. And when you subscribe, you're making sure you don't miss the moment when silence finally breaks. Because trust this, someone is going to talk. It might be a sister. It might be a family insider. It might be Tamar herself. And when that happens, the narrative will shift overnight. So don't disappear now. Stay locked in. Drop your thoughts below. Do you think this family can ever recover? Or has the damage already gone too far? Subscribe, turn on notifications, and stay ready. Because this story isn't cooling down. It's loading.